Thank you for joining us this evening again. We have some time to learn more about the Baylor Interdisciplinary Core through the Honors College. I'll go ahead and get started. I want to start off by saying welcome to the session. My name is Amanda Torres, and I serve as the Senior Director of Undergraduate Admissions. We're thankful that you're here today, whether you have started the application process, been admitted, or just are thinking about applying and have more questions. We're excited that you're here. I do want to let you know that if you have any admissions related questions, I would be more than happy to answer them through the chat. Or you are more than welcome to contact admissions, your admissions counselor directly, or you can contact admissions at baylor.edu, and we can take care of anything that is not related to the questions that you might have about the Honors College BIC program. We also have the chat feature that we're going to be paying attention to. So if you have questions that you want to put in the chat, we have wonderful staff and faculty and students who are going to introduce themselves and also be available to answer that. So please feel free to utilize that. And for now, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleagues from the Honors College to introduce themselves and get the session going. Again, thank you for joining us.
Welcome, everyone. I am Rhonda Bond. Can you guys hear me? Good. I'm so sorry. I am Rhonda Bond, and I am the Assistant Director of the Baylor Interdisciplinary Core, and we are one of 4 opportunities within the Honors College. And so we're so glad you're here to learn a little bit more about the Honors College, but specifically tonight, this event, as you know, is called Meet the BIC. So the Baylor Interdisciplinary Core, our nickname is the BIC. And so we're here to talk more about that opportunity. If you do have questions about the other opportunities in the Honors College, we're happy to answer those questions. I have some wonderful colleagues with me here today. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves briefly, and then we're going to get into the question and answer. So we're going to do a brief overview about what the BIC is, who we are, and then we have some questions. So there were some questions that some people had sent to us in advance, so we'll start with that. But again, just as Amanda had shared, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat feature. We have some team members that are monitoring the chat, and they will be sending those questions to me privately so that I can ask them of our panel. So we do have one faculty member with us, Dr. Sarah Walden, who teaches in the BIC. We also have 2 of our senior advisors with us, Dr. Caitlin James and Dr. Justin King. And then we have plenty of current BIC students who I'm so happy to have on here with us, taking time out because we're close to finals. It's for the end of the semester, so we're so grateful for them taking the time to join us tonight. So if I could ask my BIC students, if you guys could unmute and introduce yourselves just briefly, please, for me. So I'm going to start with Karis. I see you.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Karis Enright. I'm a sophomore, rising junior in the BIC, and I'm also a university scholar, studying professional writing and rhetoric and philosophy.
And thank you, Karis. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name. And then Jackson, I see you in my view.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jackson Boone. I'm a sophomore. I'm from a small town, Calvert City, Kentucky, and I'm a mechanical engineering major. As far as professional goals go, after undergrad, I'd like to work in the construction industry on the mechanical engineering side of things.
Bella, I see you next.
Hi, my name is Isabella Cloud, or Bella. I am a current freshman in the BIC program, and I am also a biology major, pre-med. As far as professional goals, I'm looking into neurology right now, but I still have quite a bit of time to figure that out.
Laura Kate, I see you.
I am Laura Kate. I'm from Arkansas, and I'm on the pre-law track. I'm a political science major with a Spanish minor.
And Armando.
My name's Armando Ramirez. I'm from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, another small town, and I'm a business scholar, formerly known as Transformer Scholars, majoring in economics and finance, and I'm aspiring to be an actuary.
All right. I think I got all my BIC students. Did I? Okay, we're good. So what I want to do next is we're going to have Dr. Sarah Walden speak to you a little bit, give a brief overview about what is the BIC. And then we'll get into our Q&A. Dr. Walden?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Sarah Walden. I'm a professor of rhetoric in the BIC. I'm also the associate director of the BIC program. So basically what you need to know about the BIC is that the BIC is a replacement core or an alternative core program. So any university you go to, you have to take 35-ish hours of core classes. And there's usually your English, your history, philosophy, things like that. So the BIC simply replaces those with an interdisciplinary and integrated series of classes. So it's the same number of hours that you would be taking through the arts and sciences core. You're just doing it in the honors college and you're doing it in a slightly different way. Some of the things that make the BIC unique is that we have a cohort model, meaning that you come in with a cohort of around 200 freshmen and you travel through your classes in your first 2 years with that cohort of freshmen in a combination of large lectures and small group classes. So we do tend to have more small groups than large groups, so more smaller discussion-based classes. You also have interdisciplinary teams of faculty, meaning that you might have 10 people teaching your world cultures class. One of them might be an archaeologist, one might be a religion scholar, one might be a philosopher, one might be a historian, so on and so forth. So you're getting a lot of different perspectives on a lot of the primary texts that you're reading. So you're not getting a lot of, lecture classes with people that are, taking it for a credit and then moving on to the next thing. You never see them again. The cohort model is really big. And I just want to really emphasize the core part. So you're still going to be able to have your own major in any part of the university. You're still going to be able to be in any other honors program you want. This is just the way that you satisfy those core requirements that you would do both at Baylor or any other university you might attend. So we're an alternative core program, and we're really excited to answer your questions. I'm going to stop now and let Dr. Bond kind of tell us some of the questions that she wants us to cover so that you can learn what you want to know about the BIC. We're really glad you're here.
Okay, so this question goes to our students, and I'll let you guys, and more than one of you, by the way, can answer this one. Why should I be excited about the BIC?
I can start if no one opposes. So I think the BIC is a really exciting program because I went to a big public school back home. So I always kind of craved like an intimate academic environment where everyone's like very intrigued about the readings and really wants to participate. So every day I go into BIC class, especially being a pre-med, it's very different. The courses look very different. You have a very large class size when you go from a chemistry lecture, a huge auditorium, and then you go into a cozy little BIC classroom and there's about 10 or 12 of you. And it's just very intimate. It's very exciting. Everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to get to know you. So yeah, I think that's my favorite part about it. Why you should be excited.
Do we
Yeah.
have another?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, kind of building off of Bella's, I definitely think that my favorite thing about the BIC is community. It's really nice to get to have close discussions with people, and the way that the kind of small group and large group works, you kind of get to know people in your small groups really well, but also people that you don't have small groups with well as well. So it's just a really nice community. It's really nice to get to be in that kind of academic environment where you all have different interests, but you're on doing the same readings, having the same discussions. And yeah, I'd say community is definitely my favorite part of the BIC.
Also say something about the professors as well. Isabel and Karis are right. Like the community is by far my favorite part, but they've done a good job talking about that. So I'll talk a little bit about the professors in the BIC because I think that's one thing that makes the BIC so special. Just to kind of give you an example of like how invested they are, not just in your academic life, but also your personal life. So on Sunday, I went to one of my BIC professors' house. He had the entire class over for dinner. His wife cooked us lasagna and then also sent us home with leftovers, which as a college student is nice to have leftovers as well. So we're able to go to his house, and then on Thursday, my other BIC professor is having everyone over to his house for dinner as well. So as a college student, you can always have a free meal, and that just kind of shows you how familial you'll get to be with your professors. You're always talking about something even outside of class, and they really take a vested interest in how you're doing as a student and as a person. And I can say that's really, really unique based on other Baylor departments.
Thank you, guys. So we have another question. Dr. Walden, I think this may be geared more toward you, but some of the students may want to chime in on this one as well. When looking at the curriculum, what's the difference between the English core course and BIC's rhetoric course?
Okay, so there's a huge difference. And I can say this with authority because I've taught in the English department as well prior to my appointment in the BIC. So a typical core writing course is going to be some different genres of essays. You might do like a personal narrative, you might do a reflective piece, you might do something analytical, but it's going to be really sort of focused on method only. And that's not a bad thing. That can be really, really good. And English 1310 is a fantastic class at Baylor. What the BIC does very differently is that our rhetoric course is a combination of both rhetorical criticism, philosophy, some theology. We read psychotherapists when we're talking about empathy. We look at a lot of different people that basically all feed into the idea of how do we communicate and understand one another. So all of your essays will be rhetorical analyses of a speech or of an artifact. My favorite one that we write is your second semester, you write a rhetorical analysis of some sort of media artifact. So most students will choose like an SNL skit or a TikTok or something like that. And we teach you the skills to be able to have things to say about those. And then ultimately you will write a research paper at the end, but we guide you through that in lots of different steps. So you do get all of the same skills in our rhetoric sequence that you would in the English writing class. But the difference is you're still bringing lots of texts from a lot of different disciplines to bear on how you think about communication. And that, I think, is what's really special about this course. I've taught many, many writing courses. I've enjoyed teaching many writing courses, but nothing is quite the same as what we're doing in rhetoric in the BIC. Would any of the students who are here want to talk about sort of your experience, briefly talk about your experience of rhetoric and maybe how that compares to a friend that you have who's not in the BIC?
Yeah, so as a professional writing and rhetoric concentration, I definitely honestly will say that rhetoric was a big reason why I decided to declare that concentration. It really just gives a new perspective on writing. And like Dr. Walden said, you're learning a lot of the same skills and you're doing a lot of the same kinds of things, but just in my opinion, in a much deeper way and a more meaningful way. So the good thing is that a lot of the rhetoric courses will transfer over to obviously cover your English courses. So for example, in my concentration, I have different English and rhetoric courses that are covered that transfer over from my BIC and from my rhetoric in the BIC. But yeah, it's really, really fun. Like even that final research paper that Dr. Walden is talking about, I wrote mine on Kim Kardashian wearing a dress and what she said at the Met Gala. So they can look like a lot of different things that I think in traditional English classes, maybe your essays and projects might not quite look like, in a way that's really fun. So.
Thank you. So we've got some questions really coming in here. All right. So now this, I think, is maybe as well as Dr. Walden, as well as maybe some of our senior advisors. How does the workload change from the basic courses compared to honors classes? And I guess this, depending on your major, are the requirements strict? I hope I answered that right.
So I think this depends a lot on your high school experience. When I was in high school, my high school classes were so difficult that when I got to college, it was a bit of a relief. And some people have that experience. Some people never had homework in high school and they get to college and the workload seems incredibly heavy, whether you're doing the regular core or the BIC. So it really depends a lot on your experience. There are some people who are going to tell you the workload's really heavy. Some they're going to tell you it's pretty light or pretty normal. So it's hard for me to compare given that it's so subjective. You are going to be asked to read and write a lot. I think that's really important to say straight off the bat. If you are not somebody who enjoys reading and writing, the BIC might not, it might teach you to enjoy them, but it also might not be the best place, just because those are really important skills that we're going to emphasize quite a bit. But I think this might be a good place to turn it over to the students because you're the ones actually doing the workload. So how does it compare to either friends of yours who are not in the BIC? Does it seem different? How does it compare to other honors classes? Whatever comparisons you want to make or comparisons to high school would be helpful. Jackson, I could see you nodding a lot. So do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure, I can. So I'm an engineering major on top of BIC. So the workload with that is already kind of a lot. But then in adding BIC onto that, I think it gets even more. But I learned how to manage my time pretty well. Dr. Walden, I was nodding because you said depends on your high school experience. Well, I didn't do probably as much to get myself prepared for college as I needed to in high school. So college was definitely a wake-up call. But what I realize is it's just preparing me for the real world and eventually entering the workforce. So that type of time management, organization skills, once you master that, I found it's taken me a while. Honestly, this would be the first semester I'd say I felt good about it, but then it becomes very manageable and you work yourself into a routine. So it might be, for me, it was a bit of a shock going right into it, having to read and write as much as you said. But once you kind of get in that routine, it becomes kind of just like a second nature.
And I do want to say, to kind of build on that, one of the great things about the BIC and the cohort model and the community that Bella and Karis were talking about is that we also have peer instructors that are undergraduate students in every one of your freshman classes. And they're there to kind of help you figure out some of those life skills, like Jackson's talking about, the time management, the how do I read 100 pages in one night? They have tricks for you, right? So they're all there to kind of help you get through, especially that first semester. And it really is great in terms of, you know, college is hard no matter where you go. It's always going to be hard in your first semester because it is simply so different than anything you've done before. And so one of the things that we build in is really strong support systems that connect you to the BIC, but also connect you to offices like CASE and care team and things like that at Baylor that can provide other support if you need it. So time management, scheduling support, things like that.
Yes, Baylor has lots of support. So not only within the Honors College do we offer support to our students, but the university at large, we make sure we have lots of academic as well as social and emotional supports for our students. So we recognize that, you know, you're making the sacrifice to equip yourself for whatever you feel called to do in the world. And we're trying to make sure we support you in all the ways that we can in a very holistic way. There's one question in the chat that it was answered in the chat by one of our advisors, but I wanted to make sure I addressed to the group as a whole. As Dr. Walden had said in the beginning, BIC is an alternative core. So it's one or the other. You do BIC or you do general core. So it's not an additional workload as in additional courses. It's you choose one or the other. It's that simple. The only difference between us, well, there's a lot of differences, but the greatest differences between us and the general core that we're part of the Honors College, and our courses, like Dr. Walden has shared, are interdisciplinary. So we're not just touching on one thing, we're looking at these particular disciplines from multiple disciplines. So I hope that clarifies that question. Okay, so going back to some of the questions we had, they asked, there's a question on here about, and I know we have lots of students interested in business. One student in particular is asking, how does the BIC work with Hankemer scholars? Do we have some business students on here? Yeah, Armando, do you mind? Yeah.
Yeah, the Hankemer Scholar Program is essentially, if you're not familiar with it, is just the motto is more business sooner. So you're essentially condensing your freshman courses that you would normally take as a pre-business student within 1 year so that you can start your classes that are attributable to your major in your sophomore year. So you could either add on more majors and more minors and almost like every Hankemer Scholar I know has multiple majors or minors. Like I have a double major minor in statistics and I'm doing BIC. And it's very like I don't think I've ever seated around 15 hours. It's not doing more as like we mentioned with the BIC. It's just an alternative that condenses and just kind of makes it more exposure, more I guess enlightening to your education for college. Because that's what I really wanted to get out of college was to get the most out of it. And I found that both programs work great together where I feel like I'm in an accelerated program and both have cohorts. And sometimes I see some people from both of my big class and my Hankemer Scholars classes. So it's a really great combo and doesn't really add any stressors of like too many classes. And it feels, if you definitely taken like AP courses, it's definitely the same amount of pace, which I really appreciated.
And Dr. James, I'm curious, do you have something you would add from an advising standpoint?
Yes. Sorry, my dog was barking nonstop, and this was the only way I could get him to be quiet. So when it comes to Hankemer Scholars and BIC, one thing to keep in mind is that because they are both accelerated programs, your first semester is going to be pretty intense in terms of an adjustment time. So you're taking, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, you're just in, as Armando was saying, a more condensed program. So that's something to keep in mind. But But overall, I think business as a school works really well with the BIC. We have a lot of students who are business and BIC and complete both programs really successfully. So yeah, it's a great combination.
Thank you. So we also have quite a few questions. So I want the students to address this. How does BIC work with pre-med? I know we have some pre-med students on here.
Do I just chime in or do you want?
Yes, Bella, go
Okay.
for it.
All right. So far it's been, so I'm on my second semester now of doing bio pre-med and BIC program. As far as like a general, like holistic sense, I feel like it's been very helpful. Just the way that BIC frames your thinking, especially with rhetoric. Dr. Walden is my rhetoric teacher. And I love her so much. She's great. You should take her. But anyways, yes, the way that the BIC has you thinking about the world, it just kind of channels that same kind of analytical thinking. So I was involved in my first semester, and I'm continuing at my second semester, a sort of undergraduate research program. It's called CPhages. I don't know if anyone's participating in that, but it really did transfer very well of just being more analytical, thinking more deeply about the sources you're using, or the type of information you're getting and how you can organize it better. When it came around to research presentations, I was very particular about how my research presentation looked, if I was conveying the information in a successful way that translated in the way that I wanted it to. As far as like scheduling and everything, it's been very easy for me. I walk into an advising appointment and all the pre-med courses that I should be taking are right there. All the BIC courses I should be taking are right there. And it's been very easy that way. I don't know if there are any other specific things. I mean, the course load is definitely manageable. It's very involved. I was a AP credit kid in high school. So I was very used to having like kind of a significant course load. So that did, it wasn't too much of a stress for me. It was majority the other stress of being a freshman that took a toll on everything else. But as far as the courses were, it was great. So I say I would recommend it to every pre-med.
Awesome. Did any other student pre-med want to chime in on that one? Are we good? Okay, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So there are lots of questions about housing. So we do know for just for the everyone on the call, we in the Honors College, we have a specific dorm we call it the HRC, and it's the Honors Residential College. That is an option for any student who is at any of the 4 programs. As long as you're in one of the 4 programs within our college, you can live in that particular dorm. But I'm going to let the students speak to the housing because all of them live on campus. They would be the experts here. Can you guys talk about the housing options?
Absolutely. So I had a bit of an interesting housing experience. I actually, my freshman year lived in Cityside, which was the hotel, while they were renovating Collins. And I kind of found that over the course of my freshman year, my closest friends were actually coming from the Honors College, particularly from BIC, which obviously is why I talked about community earlier. But yeah, a lot of my closest friends were from the Honors College, and a lot of them lived in the HRC. So I actually got the opportunity to transfer into the HRC. So I am living in the Honors Residential College this year. And it is just amazing. Like, it's hard to explain until you kind of join it, because I would go to some events last year and it was really fun, but it just is so different living in the HRC. And it's just a really immersive experience. You kind of are this community, and of course you're a community in BIC regardless, so it's obviously not required to live in the HRC, but it really adds a lot to, I'd say, your college experience when you are with kids also in the honors program. So yeah, I would say that it just adds a lot. Obviously not required, but I love the HRC, and obviously I transferred in, so it was important enough to me to be living with my friends in the honors college that I decided to move into the HRC.
I can give,
Oh, go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry.
I can give like a different perspective on that. I don't live in the HRC. My roommate is not in the honors college, so I chose to not live there so I could still live with her. And I was definitely regretting that a little bit at the beginning because all my big friends were talking about all the fun events they had in the HRC, but I also think like now I can look back and it was maybe good because I have friends that are outside of honors and outside of the BIC, so you kind of get both worlds if you don't live in the HRC. But there's definitely a lot of benefits to it as well. But yeah, you get both worlds if you are outside of it. So if you like to have kind of you can be this person here and you can be this person with your other friends here, then it's just kind of personal preference, but I think it works out however, either way.
Anyone else want to chime on the housing? Okay, next question. There's a lot, so I want to make sure we get to them. Are BIC students allowed to do study abroad? Well, of course, yes. But do we have any of our students who've done study abroad or soon? Karis, I know you're getting ready to.
Yes, so I am actually going to be studying abroad in Scotland next semester at the University of St. Andrews. And I don't think Dr. James knew that from her reaction to when I said that. And yeah, I'm really excited. I definitely would say with BIC, and all of my honors programs really, because I'm a part of technically 3, have been really helpful and flexible in helping me have that experience. So yeah, I've had a lot of support from all of my advisors in helping me go abroad. I will say that if you're going to do a semester, it is a little bit harder to do it your first 2 years because of the BIC. Because of course you're taking 2 BIC classes a semester. But especially when you get into your junior and senior year, it opens up a lot more and there are a lot more opportunities. So for example, I'm actually going to the University of St. Andrews with a BIC faculty member. I'm going with Dr. McGlashan, who's one of our BIC professors. So I will actually have the chance to take one of my classes abroad for a BIC credit. So there's lots of experiences like that you can do. And in addition, there are summer programs that are actually BIC specific. So for example, my roommate actually this summer is going to BIC in Turkey and Greece. So she's going to be getting a BIC credit this summer over the course of a few weeks while she's in Europe. So yeah, I would definitely say that there's a lot of support for studying abroad. Definitely talking to your advisor early, no matter what programs or majors you're in, definitely helps that experience happen. But I don't think I talked to my advisors about it until like last semester. So even if you don't, that's okay, but definitely just communicating, making sure it works out. And yeah, there's a lot of support to be had for wanting to go abroad.
Yeah, Armando, why don't you chime in as well?
Speaking for like an outside the big study abroad, I did a study abroad in Spain for a month during my freshman summer. And I think it's really great to get your study abroads during the summer of your freshman year because, especially for business students or maybe other majors, it's really hard to get an internship during those first few summers. So a lot of people just tend to take other courses, and especially with Hancomer Scholars, I was just generally ahead of the course. So people usually tend to graduate early or just add on a lot of majors. So because I had so much flexibility, I was able to just take some Spanish classes I really wanted to take and study abroad in Spain. And in terms of affordability, it was essentially free, at least for me, because I'm graduating a semester early. And a lot of people don't know that if you're graduating a semester early, you could apply your scholarships that are applied to your last semester towards summer programs. And I won a scholarship. There's a lot of those like study abroad scholarships that I won, so I just applied one of those towards like my program cost, my academic scholarship, my last semester applied to my tuition cost, and the program cost, like my scholarship was still bigger than the program cost. So that gave me extra money to even buy the plane ticket and have spending money when I was in Spain. So if you're worried about cost, there's definitely ways to get around it.
And yes, we have a wonderful we used to call it the study abroad office, but I think it's the Office of Global Engagement. I think they changed their name recently. There are lots of scholarship opportunities for study abroad. So never let cost deter you. When I was an undergrad, it's one of the things I regretted. I let cost deter me. And there are plenty of scholarship opportunities. And the beautiful thing about Baylor is advising is required. So you have to meet with those advisors, and a lot of us have a lot of that wonderful information and we can direct you to those resources. So sometimes it's simple as asking a question or just saying, I'm thinking about, and then we can help connect you to those resources. Do we have any other of our student panel that wanted to chime in or advisors about the study abroad?
I am not a student panel, but I would like to chime in. So one thing that's worth noting, I know we have a lot of students who are interested in pre-med. One of the One of the common study abroad programs that pre-med students do is pre-med in Dublin. And that can sometimes fall in second semester of your sophomore year. If you are doing pre-med in Dublin and it falls on the second semester of your sophomore year, don't automatically think that discounts you either from the BIC or from that specific program, because there is some flexibility for study abroad programs to make that work. So don't be deterred. Just ask us early.
Yes, thank you, Dr. James. So here's a big question. So Dr. James, while we have you, don't unmute. Will my AP or dual enrollment credits work with BIC?
Okay, that's a really good question and very frequent. Which is just a sign of how many of y'all are taking advantage of both of those opportunities, which is smart. So AP, we generally won't know how that will affect your transcript until July when we get those scores in, unless you've submitted AP tests from another year. So if you took some AP tests junior year, I think you might have those scores in, but anything you take this year or have taken this spring semester won't show up until July. For the most part, AP classes, regardless of whether or not you're in the BIC, will transfer in as elective courses rather than core classes. So a lot of them that transfer in will transfer in as Poli-Sci 1387, which is a common core class that's different from what the BIC is doing. But that is a required course if you're a Poli-Sci major. So even if they don't apply directly to the BIC, any credit that Baylor accepts, we figure out how it works in your transcript. And sometimes that just means coming in with elective credits. But that can also free you up either later in your career to take more electives in your major, or it can help you graduate early. Dual credit is a bit different because I think we process those as they come in. So sometimes in our summer registration appointments, which you'll be getting emails about in the next month or so, those will sometimes have dual credit courses. They'll transfer in usually as, trying to think, as Common Core or elective credit. Baylor Interdisciplinary Core will often see AP scores counting towards sciences. And something that's not included in BIC, but is part of the university formal reasoning requirement, is Math 1321, which is our Cal 1 class. So if you have calculus credit or AP credit for calculus, that is something that transfers in well that you would have to take even if you weren't doing BIC. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of opportunity to work with transfer credit and work with AP credit. Sorry, I hope that wasn't too complicated. I really got into the weeds there.
No, that was great. But we do, as a Baylor student, any credits you have, as long as they meet the scores we're looking for, the grades, if they're dual enrollment credit, C or higher, usually AP is 3 or higher. Some majors may require 4 or higher. So it does depend on your major. It's going to come in and count. That's the biggest thing. Even though it may not be equivalent to the BIC course, it may count for something within your major. Thank you, Dr. James.
And sorry, before we leave this topic, you can check AP scores if you know your AP score ahead of time, even if it's not official with the university yet. There is a website, if you just Google AP score requirements Baylor, they should have the AP score requirements and which classes they cover 2024 and 2025 when you'll be coming in.
Bella, did you want to jump in on you looked like you had something to say. I saw your screen light up.
So regarding AP credits and how it transferred, like I did a lot of AP credits and dual credits in high school. I came in with 48 hours, I think. So with BIC, a lot of that did not directly transfer. It was a lot of English history. But regarding my major, I knocked out nearly all of the elective credits requirements for bio. So what that looks like for my junior and senior years, I just have a lot more flexibility with different courses I could take, or it kind of just lessens my workload after all. So I wouldn't be super discouraged if a lot of those classes don't directly transfer to the BIC, because especially if you are like some STEM or if you are pre-med, it will most likely look, if you're part of college in arts and sciences, it will mostly look like just knocking out a lot of elective requirements.
So I have another question, and I hope I'm asking it correctly for the person to put this in the chat. What's the best way to prepare for the BIC? So this is Dr. Walden, Dr. Jane, and I think this is a really good student panel question.
Yeah, I'll answer very briefly. I think the best way to prepare for the BIC and to prepare for college in general, whether it is Baylor or somewhere else, is get lots of rest in your summer, because you're going to come, you know how to read, you have learned how to write, you have taken all the tests, you've done all the things. I really think that using that summer prior to coming into college to just rest and enjoy yourself and not overwork yourself, because you're going to have plenty of time to work. You don't need to read ahead, because if you read ahead, you're not going to be reading it the way you're going to be reading it in class anyway, so it's not going to do you any good. So just take some time to yourself and do things that you enjoy. Remind yourself that you have hobbies, because those are things you're going to want to fall back on when college work gets somewhat stressful. Remind yourself that your body needs sleep, because sleep is really important, no matter how much people tell you it's not. So I think those are the things that I would say. There's really nothing you can do to prepare for the college classes in your summers. However, I bet the student panel has some things to say about maybe things to think about in high school, or things that you did, things that you wish you had done. It's been a long time for me.
I would say just the only thing to do to prepare is like maybe write out your schedule whenever you have your advising appointment, and like just have that in your notes. And then I literally would not think about it again until you start classes, because just relax, enjoy the summer, don't be stressing. Everything Dr. Walden said on point, I thought. Yeah, my high school was not, some people come into the BIC, they've had a classical education situation. I did not have that. I didn't do any preparations, and I came in and it was fine, and everyone was fine together. And yeah, I think just take it easy and just come in ready and excited, and yeah, don't do anything crazy over the summer to prep.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Dr. Walden and Laura Kate. Definitely resting. Sleep is huge. This is more so maybe once you come to college than before. But as soon as you can, establish how much sleep you want to get and stick to it. It can be so tempting, but it really makes such a big difference. But yeah, I would also say kind of excitement is really important, which might be hard if you're just kind of nervous and excited, but there's so much like imposter syndrome. But if you're excited about what you're doing, you are going to do well. To me, I really think BIC and also college as a whole is what you make it. So what you put in is what you're going to get out. So, if you go in, if you get excited about your classes, if you're engaging with the readings, you're going to do amazing.
I will say, if you're nervous about, the BIC or nervous about college and kind of have questions, obviously you can always reach out to your admissions advisors. You can reach out to your BIC advisors. But if you have questions that are more student oriented, I mean, you've got 5 students who volunteered their Tuesday evening to be here. There are people who would be more than happy to answer your questions, and we can put you in touch with them. So if there's anything that you do feel like you need to do to prepare in terms of kind of the social or emotional or intellectual parts, please feel free to ask Dr. Bond, Dr. Janes, anybody, and they can find you someone who can answer that question from a much closer perspective to a college freshman than any of us are.
Yeah. So there is a question that's kind of tied to this question, but I would really like for each of our student panel to answer. So we have someone in the chat that asks, is there something about the BIC that you didn't know coming in that you wish you knew now? And would you share that?
I'll go first on this. Man, this answer makes me just feel so bad, but I came into the BIC really not knowing anything about the BIC. I did not know what I was signing up for. I'm pre-law, and I was like, oh, I can definitely handle an honors thing. I should do an honors thing. And BIC said, good for pre-law. That's the reasoning there. I can't explain it. Everyone on this panel is way more responsible than me because they're on here learning what the BIC is. So everything about the BIC was a surprise to me, and that's just really embarrassing to have to say, but it was a pleasant surprise. I've loved it. Um, so yeah, that's my answer on that. Everything about it though was a lovely surprise that I now am super invested in and would tell anyone to do. But yeah.
I think some advice I would tell my freshman self would be like you get out of it what you put into it. So that very first semester, you know, I was a little shy, didn't talk a lot in class and stuff, but if you go into it with an attitude of like I can make friends here, I can engage in really interesting discussions with professors who are absolutely brilliant in what they're talking about, and also read these incredible works and texts, and like going in there with that mindset, I think would really just enhance your experience in a lot of ways. Because now where I'm sitting at in really my last BIC semester at Baylor, looking back on it, I realize that I've made so many lifelong friends, and I truly do mean lifelong. Like these are people that I'm going to talk to well after college, and part of that is credit to the cohort model, but also that's because I started investing in the classes, in the conversations, inside and outside of the classroom afterwards. So make the most of it.
I would kind of say two things about this. I think the first is that you have so much support. I think coming into Baylor, especially the honors college, you think like, oh, it's the honors college, like these people are going to be so strict and they're going to be so scary. Like Dr. Janes just had a puppy in her lap. Like your professors and your advisors are people and they're human and they care about you. I've been taught by Dr. Walden and Dr. Janes. Dr. Bond is my advisor. These people really care about you and they'll pour into you. I think Jackson talked about this a little bit earlier, but yeah, like they are people and they will help you. And even if it's not related to BIC or classes, they really do care and will support you. So that's the first thing I would say, is to not be scared because you have a support system. The second thing is I did not realize how meaningful my BIC classes would be to me. I came in as a pre-med, which is so funny now because I am now a humanities girly. But I came in as a pre-med and I mostly left STEM because I was realizing, man, these BIC classes are so much more meaningful. They're so much deeper to me. Not to say that science can't be meaningful, but for me personally, I really realized that, wow, I actually really love doing readings critically and really thinking about things and forming my opinion about things and making them known. So I think, yes, it looks great on your, diploma to have the fancy little BIC thing, but also you really do get a lot of out of your BIC classes.
Something I would say that I guess I wasn't prepared for, coming from like an AP background of like AP Lang and AP Lit from high school, was that I was used to just reading a book for weeks at a time. And like we would talk about like one book for 1 month and write poems eventually and read poems. And I was kind of expecting the same model going into the big. And I was like, oh, we're jumping from book to article to article. We're always switching topics. And just the fast pace of like you're getting so much exposure to so much different material was something I really appreciated because I didn't have that much, I guess, like critical thinking and in-depth like exposure and discussion I did in high school. But something you should definitely kind of like surprises you at first, but then you kind of get used to it.
Um, so everything about the community and the classes being super tight-knit, I will echo and agree with that. But to add something a little bit different, one thing I didn't really realize going in that I really love about the BIC program is the fact that all of these courses that you're taking are very cohesive and they build off each other. So your world cultures class, you'll read something about the Odyssey or learn about Greek culture, and then it will tie into something you're learning about rhetoric that you're learning in rhetoric. So it's just really satisfying that you see maybe not so much in the moment when you're trying to cram these readings, but after the fact you see how well these units build on each other, not only within the course, within the rhetoric course, in the second rhetoric course you take, you see all these fundamental skills building, like Dr. Walden was talking about. but also even in cultures, you'll kind of have this like crossing over of just very useful information, analytical thinking, content, and it just, you feel very supported, not only because the professors are really invested in what you're learning and in you as a person, but also because they know everything else about the other things you're learning as well. So they really care about you. Dr. Walden will help you out with your world cultures as much as she can. But yeah, that's what I would say.
So this has been great. And because of time, I do want to kind of wrap us up, but I do want to let everyone on the call, I want to remind you that just because when this event ends, that doesn't mean our outreach to you ends or our availability to you ends. We highly recommend reaching out to us at BIC@baylor.edu. Myself and my team, we open ourselves to Teams meeting or in-person meetings to meet with families, prospective students, to answer your questions. Because sometimes in these formats, there's so many different people on the call and we're trying to accommodate so many questions. Sometimes your specific concern may not get addressed directly. And so we want to make sure and just ensure to you we are available. So if someone could put in the chat for me, one of my team, put in the chat our email contact, send out us an email, just ask a question, or if you want to set up a meeting, myself, Caroline Clark, we will make sure that we get those set up with you. I am always happy to meet with families. So we do want to make sure your questions are addressed. I also want to highly emphasize, yes, we're an honors program. And yes, it is stressful, but we offer so much support. We care about our students as a whole. You are more than just a statistic that, makes Baylor money, right? We want you, because we are a Christian institution, I do want to, really focus on that. We believe strongly in the call. You are here for a purpose. We want to help equip you for that purpose. So we have things like peer mentors, peer instructors, who are persons who have already taken these classes that you're taking, and they're here to help walk you through it. As you heard from our student panel, these are people in the midst of all of this, from first year students to seniors like Jackson, and they're doing so many wonderful things. And it was really warming my heart and kind of teared me up that the way we feel and the passion that my team and I feel about this program and the work that we do, that our students are feeling it. And so if you choose Baylor, if you choose the BIC, you will be a part of this wonderful BICR family, as we call ourselves. We do have scholarship opportunities. I want to throw that in quick. Amanda, I'm paying attention to time. I'm almost done here. We do have scholarship opportunities. At this point, if you are a senior, our scholarship deadline is done. So anyone that applies to the honors, any of our honors program, you're automatically in the pool for scholarships. The deadline for that was April 1st. So we've already given out any funding that we have, and we give from $1,000 up to, I believe it's $5,000 in scholarships, and we give multiple of those scholarships, and we give 2 rounds of those scholarships every spring. So there's early spring, and then there's the late spring, which is that April 1st deadline. So that part is done, but you do have other scholarship opportunities, probably within the university. We accept, of course, outside scholarships. So there are other opportunities. If you're a senior, still kind of looking for some funding, fill in some gaps. But if you are a junior, the earlier the better. We highly recommend, applying, getting these processes in, so that we can get that funding to you. And I'm so grateful for all of you, as well as my BIC team and my BIC students, for taking the time to be here with us tonight. You could be doing a lot of things on this Tuesday night. So we're grateful that you joined us. And then I'm turning back over to Amanda.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all the great information that was shared from the BIC program, our students, our faculty, our staff that are here. They are all here to support you. I know that most of you are at the point where you are trying to make that final decision. So we do want to encourage you through that process, whether you're making that decision by May 1 or you are going to continue to consider different opportunities that you have in front of you over the month of May. I know some institutions have changed their deadlines, so definitely feel free to reach out directly to the BIC program if you have any questions. I also saw just a few admission related questions that I did address. Please feel free to email us at admissions.baylor.edu if you have questions about your status, if you have questions about academic scholarships. I know right now that is the topic. You might, want to talk to us about that. Please feel free to reach out. We are available to answer any questions. We do have different opportunities. If you want to get to campus and visit campus, we have opportunities to come and take a tour of campus as well. But I just would say I would encourage you to get connected with us so we can talk to you specifically about your situation or, support in any way that we can. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming.